Good morning, day 19, and today is about the truth. Well, every day is about the truth. So let's make today about questions. And it's about the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. Because what I've noticed is a lot of times we're not asking the right questions. And the quality of our life is often going to rise or fall to the quality of the questions that we're asking, or that we're brave enough or fearless enough to ask. Because our brain is not just responding to life, it's filtering life through the questions that you keep repeating, you keep asking. And there's neuroscience that proves this, and I won't go into it, but let's just say that when you ask questions, when you're genuinely curious, it activates a system, either a reward or memory system in the brain that helps learning, and it helps retention, and it impacts your experiences. So basically, if you ask better questions, your brain starts to search differently. So for example, look around you if you're in a room, excuse me, and look for anything red. Just look around, take a moment, look for anything red, or look outside. And how many red things did you find? And if I ask you how many green things did you see, you probably wouldn't have noticed many, but now look for all the green things. And when you ask questions, your brain filters out everything else that's not the answer to that question. And so one of the problems that we have, or the challenges that we have, is we're asking the question from a position of fear, not faith. And we all know these questions. Why is this happening to me? And there's better questions. And that's okay to ask that question when we're immature and we're still growing. But when has that question ever helped you? Why is this happening to me, God? And when has that question ever been answered? I think the better question is, what is this trying to develop in me? What part of me needs this experience to develop? Even in business, we ask the same questions. Why is this happening to me? And we know that the brain is predictive. It tries to figure out the future based on the past. And that means if your question is rooted in an old identity, your mind is going to keep producing the same answers. And there's research also that shows, I think it's predictive processing research, that shows that the brain is constantly using expectations to interpret reality, not just reacting to facts. So everything that happens to you, your brain is using the past to determine what that actually means. Even in the Bible, it says in James 4, you do not have because you do not ask. And it adds in verse 3, you ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly. And this is so powerful, because the issue is not whether you asked. It's where the question came from. Because we see in the Bible, it says, ask and you shall receive. But if you're not asking the right questions, you're not going to receive. I'll give you an example. People ask me for stuff all the time. My kids ask me for things. What if someone asks you, hey, I just need money. Can you give me some money? Okay, here's $1. Leave me alone. They asked, but they didn't ask the right question. They came to the right person with the wrong question. And so how many times are we asking the wrong question? Why me? A son or a daughter, especially a child of God, can ask, Father, what are you revealing through this? And our maturity is going to determine what we ask. And it's all a decision. We have to be more disciplined in our asking. So today, in this challenge, let's ask the right questions. Just one question. And Jesus, if you remember throughout Scripture, Jesus, he asked people questions. He would answer people by changing the question. Remember this time that the disciples asked him about the blind man? They said, who sinned, this man or his parents? And Jesus would redirect them. He said, it's not who sinned. It's how the works of God be revealed here. And that's powerful. If Jesus could redirect, could reframe, that means we're not always asking from the right position. And day 19 is not just about asking more questions. It's about asking questions from that higher identity. Because the wrong question is going to keep you trapped. It's going to keep you trapped in explanation, excuses. But the right question is going to move you towards growth. So instead of why am I stuck? What pattern am I loyal to? Why am I stuck? Let's go with that. Why am I stuck? Is that the right question? And that's another question. When you ask a question, ask, is this the best question? Is this the right question for this scenario? Is this the right question I'm asking this person? So today, let's make a declaration. Let's stop asking questions from fear, from shame, from survival. And let's ask from wisdom. Let's ask from our higher identity, from faith. Let's ask from dominion, from authority. Because God has not given us a weak mind. God has given us a strong mind. He's given us the power of authority. He's given us discernment. He's given us the ability to seek, to ask, to knock, and to receive. And so I want to ask better questions today. And let's talk about some of the questions, because you may be asking, well, how do I know if I'm asking the wrong question? I think there's a group of, there's a few types of questions in people. And let's go through the list. And you may fit on one or more of these. Number one is the person who is constantly looking for approval, like a people pleaser maybe. And so they'll ask a question like, how do I get them to like me? And the reason why that's the wrong question is because it's not our job to get people to like us. And a lot of people spend years editing themselves, trying to be a different version of themselves in front of others just for acceptance. You know, we put on this performance, especially on Instagram, and every picture, every video becomes an audition. And I think the better question is not really how do I get them to like me? It's why have I put my identity in the hands of people who are still figuring themselves out, who probably don't even know who they are? Because let's face it, most people in the world are confused. They're conforming to an identity that's been given to them. So let's reframe it. The moment you need applause to move, you need acceptance, you're really being controlled by silence. And so freedom begins when your purpose becomes louder than any validation. What is my purpose here? Why am I taking this picture? Why am I taking this Instagram shot? The next person is the type of person who's always on the run, who is the escapist, essentially. And the question that they would ask is, how do I get out of this uncomfortable season? See, this person is looking for relief, not transformation. When things happen to them, they're always trying to get out of it. And they pray for exits when the season was sent to mature them. And if you keep praying for an exit, you know what you're doing? You're delaying the transformation. If when things are hard, you're praying, God, get me out of this, get me out of this, how are you going to grow? Just think about it. If you go to the weight room or you're exercising, you're running a 5 mile circuit, and on the 3rd mile, it starts to get hard and you just give up. It's too hard. When are you ever going to complete that 5 mile circuit? You're going to have to keep coming back. And so for us, we're going through these seasons and we're asking God to get us out of it. And God is not going to respond to you in the way that you want, because that's actually for your good. Remember, pressure is going to reveal structure. The difficulty is going to expose the weaknesses, and it's going to build your capacity. And so some seasons are really classrooms disguised as chaos or dysfunction, but they're there to build you. They're there to give you structure in your business, in your family life, in your relationships, in your discipline. The third person is the person that is, I think they're the same as a people pleaser. They're the performer. I think they're the same as a people pleaser. How do I look the part? Yeah, that's the same as a people pleaser because they chase. They're not really looking to please people. They're looking to be seen a certain way, and it's not about people pleasing. It's really about satisfying their ego. They have an image that they have to protect, and they're building that image before they've even built the proper infrastructure to support that image. They're taking pictures of a nice car that they bought, but deep down they have debt. And the better question is, if nobody could see this post online, if nobody could see me driving this car, would my life still be impressive? Would I still do this? Because we tend to rent our lifestyles that we can't spiritually or even financially sustain. And that's not success. Real success is in private, I'm stable. Real success is not something that needs to be visible. Another type of person is the dreamer. They're all over the place. And they ask themselves this question, and I've been a victim of this. How do I stay motivated? Today, what's going to motivate me today? And the thing about it is motivation is so emotional. Discipline is more structural. Discipline doesn't depend on your feelings. Discipline is what you do irrespective of how you feel. And most people, we tend to wait on, I got to feel like going. I got to feel like doing it. To be that person that you said you were going to be. To do that thing that you said you were going to do. And the better question is, what systems would make success inevitable, even on my worst day? What can I do? What can I set up that's automatic, even if I don't feel like doing it? An example for me is on my worst days, I don't feel like taking a cold shower. On my worst days, I don't feel like going to the gym. But because I have a system in place that's automatic, I'm going to work out. I'm going to do something on those days that I've decided to do that. And the system could be something as simple as I have my, I turn off the hot water. So there's no choice but to take a cold shower. As an example. Because your future can't depend on emotions. If you're building a future that's depending on emotions, your future is going to be highly unstable because your emotions are unstable. So the people that are most successful in life, that are strongest, they remove that negotiation from behaviors that are necessary or important for their growth. Another type of person that I see in business is the person who is like a resentful person. They always complain, why am I being overlooked? Why does this person constantly get this, or something to that effect? And it's almost like an entitlement or an invisible insecurity. Because if nobody rewarded you immediately, would you still become excellent? And some people, they want this visibility before mastery. But those times when nobody's seeing you, that's often where you're building depth, you're building structure, you're building character. We look at plants, and the roots, they grow in the darkness before anybody can see the trees. And that's how life is for us. So asking yourself the right question in those seasons, not why am I being overlooked, or why is this person getting, the better treatment. Your season is coming. The right question is, who am I supposed to be in this season? What am I going to do if nobody sees me, if nobody ever speaks up or sees me? Another type of person is the control freak or the control seeker. And they want to be in control of the situation. How do I guarantee that nothing goes wrong? That's out of our control. We're not God. We can't make the situation perfect. How do I make sure that this is perfect? And they confuse control with peace. You can have peace without having control. And I think the better question is, how do I remain at peace, or how do I remain grounded Even when life becomes uncertain, even when things become out of my control, even when I have the situation that's beyond anything that I can do. Because peace is not the absence of uncertainty. Peace is when you're able to be stable in the middle of uncertainty. Peace is when you can have calm in the middle of the storm. And that's the difference between control and peace. Control is not stable. You can have control and be in chaos internally, be in turmoil. And you need that inner alignment to guarantee the peace. Another type of person is the person who is constantly searching, accumulating, and trying to, what's the word? They're always trying to grab. How can I make more money? What do I need to do to make more money? This is one of the personalities that I've struggled with as well, because money itself is usually not the issue. It's the question, how can I make more money, or how do I make more money? What are you making the money for? What do you actually plan on doing with the money? A better question is, what project can I be a part of today? Because when you have projects, when you have things that you're meant to do, that will bring the money. Now, if you're looking for money to go on a vacation or to buy things, then change the question. It's not about the money. How do I make more money? That's a basic question. What can I do to be more valuable? What value have I become capable of creating consistently through my training, through my actions, through studying? And reframe it, because income is going to follow utility. Income is going to follow stewardship. Income is going to follow trust. Income is going to follow scale. What can you do that you can scale? Instead of asking, how do I make more money? If you're a baker, how do I get my product in front of more people? If you are a car salesman, what do I need to do to help families get more vehicles on the road? That's going to equal more money. Become a person of value. Another type of person is the the person who likes to argue, the person who likes to debate. They are like a wounded communicator. They're excellent at communicating, but they're just communicating the wrong thing. And the question they ask, and this can be between your husband and wife, you can take on any of these personalities. They're asking, how do I show this person that I'm right? How do I win this argument? And most people, we go into these conversations trying to protect our ego, not to build understanding. And we've seen this in our fellowship group. In the beginning, that was me. It was more so, I need to protect my ego. This person is wrong. I'm right. I need to show them that I'm right. And it's the wrong question. Well, how can I show them that I'm right? It's more so, how do I understand where they're coming from? And how can I show them where I'm coming from? Whether they get it, whether they choose to understand it, it's not our concern. Remember, Jesus would explain things to people all the time, and they didn't get it. And he didn't chase after them. He didn't try to explain further. He explained it. If he didn't get it, he moved on. And so sometimes it's also the question of what pain or what fear is underneath this disagreement. What is the other person trying to hide that I need to understand? Because a lot of times our arguments are not about, surface topical issues. It's usually about two people who have egos or are carrying unresolved issues or stories that come into collision. Another personality or archetype is the person who claims to be a believer. They worship God. They call themselves Christians, but they're passive. And they ask questions like, why hasn't God responded to my prayer? And this is also something I was guilty of. Why hasn't God changed my situation? Or they look at somebody else's situation and they judge their situation. Why hasn't God changed your situation? And we tend to wait for some type of divine intervention while we avoid responsibility. And the better question here is, what has God already done in my life that I haven't multiplied? God gave you money and you haven't multiplied it. God gave you kids and they're raggedy. God gave you a car and it keeps breaking down and you're asking for more. God gave you a house. God gave you an apartment and you can barely keep the floors clean and you're looking for a house. The toilet is filthy. Moses had a staff. Remember, David had a sling. They all had something that God used to multiply. God works through stewardship, through obedience, through movement. And the last person that I can think of is and you can think of more examples if you come up with any, but it's the fearful person. And you know what? I wouldn't even call them fearful because sometimes these people can be visionaries. And we all are guilty of this one, I think. You have a big idea and you only get fearful if it's big and uncomfortable. Think about it. You wouldn't get fearful if it's something within your reach. And so when you feel that fear, it's a sign that this is expansion coming. This is an opportunity to expand beyond my reach. And a lot of times, people who think big, they'll encounter they'll encounter fear. And the difference between those who achieve success and those that don't is just action. Action in spite of the fear. So the fearful visionary is going to ask, what if this doesn't work? What if I fail? And that question is going to train the brain. Remember what we talked about earlier. It's going to look for the answer. What if you fail? Okay, this is what happens. And that question is going to train the brain to search for what? Danger. Search for what? Failure. And then when it does that, what is it going to do to protect you? Retreat. It's not going to confront. It's going to retreat. And so the better question is not, what if this doesn't work? What if this does work? What is my life going to be like when this works? Or on the negative side, what possibilities will die if I never move forward? What life would I never see if I don't take this opportunity? If I don't go on this trip, what could I possibly miss out on? Because remember, most times when you talk to older people, they regret what they didn't do. They hardly ever regret the moves that they made. And look at your life. Look at the last 2 years. Which opportunities do you look back and say, man, that would have been a good one? And which opportunities do you look back and say, I wish I didn't do that? So the next time you've got a question, think about, is this the right question? Because fear is going to make people, it's going to make us think in terms of immediate pain. Okay, and wisdom is gonna think more so in terms of long-term regret. That's what wisdom does. It reframes the time frame so you think in terms of 5 years, 10 years. And many people are destroyed by failure. They're destroyed by hesitation that's repeated over the years. And so today, let's think about the questions that we're asking. Let's ask better questions. And let's look at our goal, our challenge. We're almost at the end. You almost made it. 11, 12 more days. And let's knock this out. Because the wrong question is going to keep you trapped. Remember,